Welcome to the Expansive Astrology podcast, where we look at using astrology beyond the tropes and horoscopes to tune into the natural forces around us and within us, honoring our true nature to craft our future. I'm your host, Melissa, the Self-Care Witch, and I'm here to help you meet your magic. Without further ado, let's begin this week's episode with a tarot reading for the collective. Stay tuned till the end of the episode so that you don't miss a super special announcement about what I have in store for you next week. Hi! Welcome back to the podcast. It's episode 32, and today we are welcoming in Capricorn season. So I have a lot for you today. There's a lot to share about Capricorn. Capricorn helps us to hone in on that fire and the dreaming and the expansion and the exploration. And Capricorn helps us bring those dreams and put them into action. Helps us with a more purposeful pursuit of us seeking our soul expansion, seeking our destiny, right? So there's a lot to share. And as always, first things first, I have a collective tarot reading for you. This is a 4-card spread for the collective, just what is present for us this week and what we can do with that and what to anchor into as the week unfolds. Since this is a collective tarot reading, some things may really resonate today and others may not feel like they apply so much. I encourage you to take what you need and leave the rest, of course, and stay open to seeing how these things may play out for you over the week to come. Because if you're hearing this, I trust that you're meant to hear it. Okay, we've got another really strong reading today, a really strong spread. There's 3 majors in this spread. To start off, present for us is the moon, which is supported by judgment. It's an interesting combo. I feel like I've maybe pulled the moon kind of recently. In a short phrase, I look at the moon card and I just simply think of surrendering to the unknown. Soul Tarot teaches that this card has us check in with how we show up to the unknown, how we show up when we can't see or when we can't know what is going on and how things are going to unfold. Learning to trust the unfolding, learning to trust the phases of our life, like learning to trust and surrender and know that the sunlight will come back around, right? Things will be made clear. We will find completion. But right now, where things might not feel so clear, or it might feel really difficult, dark, scary, how do you meet those moments? How do you move through and with that fear? How do you move with that fear? Actually, let's kind of take the pressure off of moving through these sorts of things and maybe focus on how we move with them. Because then eventually we will be through it, right? How do you move with the unknown? How do you move with the fear? How does it activate you? What does it activate within you? And is there a way, maybe, for you to find a little more centeredness, trust, faith, calm, whatever that means to you, empowerment, right? The phrase "give it to God" is coming up, which kind of does imply getting rid of that fear or getting rid of that discomfort. But surrendering, right? Trusting, kind of backing up. And there's a very clear relationship between the moon and our intuition, our innermost selves. Are you willing to be guided by the moon? Are you willing to be guided by your intuition? And like does fear get activated in that place? How do you move with that fear and allow yourself to be guided by the moon, even with that fear, and with a sense of trust and surrender? And when I say be guided by the moon, um, what I am meaning right now, like that, can mean many things, right? And like something I appreciate about Lindsay Mack and Soul Tarot's um, interpretation of the moon card is that she really emphasizes how we all have a relationship with the moon. We all have like our own special relationship with the moon that nobody else may really understand or be privy to. And there are some things that many of us agree upon, right? But like trusting your knowing of what the moon means, trusting your knowing of what intuition means um, first. But when I say like are you willing, trusting, are you allowing yourself to be guided by the moon? And when I say guided by the moon, I mean guided by your gut, your inner knowing, where things might not be clear, where it might not be obvious, right, to the naked eye or um, to the brain. But can you surrender to what you know? Surrender to what is coming up for you. Surrender to the unknown and your sense of center and your intuition there anyway, even if it doesn't feel clear, even if things might look different in the light of day. Just big, 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 like trust and surrender messages coming up with the moon. And it's supported by the Judgment card, which is another really big energy that is about like a willingness to surrender and a willingness to like hear. Uh, but I like the moon is almost like a willingness to surrender and hear from within. And Judgment feels more to me like a willingness to surrender and hear what might be what might be being made clear to us from outside of us, whether that is like our literal external circumstances, like our relationships or like the tangible things that we're interacting with, or whether that means like some sort of external, or whether it means like God. Feels really similar to the moon, but it's like different. The Judgment card is the final card before we reach the end of the majors, the final card before we reach the World card, where there is some sort of like ascension or graduation or like enlightenment kind of idea in the world. This is the final push. It's the final thing that's necessary before we can reach that sort of light and enlightenment. The Judgment card is about our willingness to heed the call, to heed the call. What is calling to you? What is being made clear to you? You get to make a choice whether or not to listen to that. You get to choose, right? That's like a big that's like the big distinction in Christianity, right? Is that you have to choose to say like um I want to go to heaven and I repent all of my sins and whatever it is. That's the thing, right? Is if you want to be saved in the rapture, is you have to have made that choice. You have to have heeded the call. And so this isn't about, it's not religious necessarily, but I think it's an interesting and important distinction in the Judgment card and in Judgment energy is that you have to make the choice. Like we can get signs and signals and messages all fucking day that we ignore. Are you listening? Are you willing to be with what is being made clear to you? It's awakening, it's reckoning, it's acceptance, and it's surrender. It's making the very intentional choice to listen to what is being made clear to you. Hmm. And I keep using the word surrender for both the moon and the judgment card. And it's kind of interesting too that um mm, it's like, are these passive cards? Because in one way, you might almost be able to say like these are passive cards. It's kind of passive, just listening, surrendering, making the choice to surrender. But then I think about that just a little bit more and making that choice. I don't think that's not passive at all. Making the choice to empower ourselves and like humble ourselves and like um manage our brain and our ego in a moon or a judgment experience, and especially a combo, uh, that's not a passive thing. It's very, very active. It's intentional. It's what is being made clear to me, whether I like it or not. Can I surrender to it? And it doesn't have to mean that you like take some giant action and um, make some major change, right? But it's about being willing to hear, willing to listen. And not just hear it though, right? Because we can hear something for decades, externally, internally, all ways, right? Like things can be very clear to us again and again and again and again. So I would say these aren't just passive. Like it's not just about hearing and surrendering, but then like, okay, can you prove that you're listening? Like what are you going to do about it, you know? And I think of like in cases of manipulation and abuse, um it can be really hard to heed the call. It can be really hard to see the red flags and really acknowledge the warnings, right? And we can kind of get stuck in this phase where we are constantly seeking proof, right? Constantly seeking proof of like, um, is it really as bad as it seems? Are those red flags really that red? Or am I just making a big deal out of it? So we wait. We don't change anything. We wait. We hang on. Or we wait or we actively seek proof to prove like um, whether or not our inner knowing may or may be true, right? Don't just listen, right? Hear and integrate and honor what is being made clear to you and like do something about it. Again, that might not mean filing for divorce this week, but maybe just like having a new relationship with the hearing and the surrender, opening ourselves up to the listening, the hearing, and the surrender, because that's what's present for us. What we're learning is the emperor. And that's really interesting. Given all of that, what we're learning is a sense of self, a sense of power, a sense of leadership, a sense of having a voice, how we use that voice, how we take up space, how we rule our kingdom, how we collaborate with other kingdoms, what we share, what we don't share, who we take advice from. What do they call it? The hand of the king. Who is your hand of the emperor? Who do you have at your council? Anyone? There's been times in my life where I've had nobody on my council. There's been other times in my life where I've had maybe too many people at on my council. Uh, I I lost my chair. I'm like sitting on the floor while like all these other people are discussing and giving their opinion on how I should run my kingdom, right? um I love I love the emperor. I love this card so much. I love Aries energy. I love the message. I love how important it is, how foundational it is, that it's more than just masculinity and manliness and and fatherhood. Like, it's so much more than that. It's how we take up space, how we use that space, where we take space, and how we honor other people's space. What kind of ruler are you? I always think of the Game of Thrones and how many different examples of leadership or like dictatorship, like, um, all the different examples that we get in Game of Thrones of how to be a king or a ruler. How do you use your fire? How do you rule your kingdom? How do you get things done? And there's not necessarily a right or a wrong answer. Maybe there is. There's not necessarily a right answer to those things. And there is a very wrong answer to those things, right? Can you build, maintain, and rule your kingdom? Can you embody emperor energy and let others do the same, right? Can you do that without crowding others out? Can you do that and like utilize your voice, your leadership, your platform, your kingdom, your space to help lift others and amplify their voices if needed, where needed, make reparations where needed? Like, what kind of ruler are you? How do you use your privilege? How do you use your voice? And coming up as our lesson this week means we might get some spicy opportunities to learn what this means. It means we might get some challenges. We might be faced with opportunities to refine how we use our voice and how we show up, which means we might find ourselves being totally trampled over. What is your response if you feel like somebody else is crowding you out or taking your space or taking your voice? How do you meet that? Do you match it? Do you have to? um, how willing are you to like initiate war in those instances where sometimes that might be appropriate? And oftentimes there's other ways, right? So many important things to consider in the Emperor, and our like sense of self might be kind of tested this week. It might be challenged a bit. So if you find that that's happening, remember that the moon and judgment are present for us. They're present here this week, and we can um, kind of remind ourselves of that and take a deep breath and center in with that idea of like, okay, I'm noticing my emperorness is really being tested right now. I'm majorly being challenged right now. I'm being trampled on. I feel like I don't have a voice, whatever it is, right? Or I feel like the only way to use my voice is to burn a bridge, start a war, and shout and scream. You can kind of remember, okay, the moon and the judgment are here. So, like, how can I surrender to this? How can I show up to this moment, even if I don't know what's going on or how to handle it? How do I want to meet that fact? Can I trust the unfolding of this? Can I trust my innermost self to kind of guide this? And also, judgment. What is this trying to teach me? What is this telling me? Where is this trying to move me? How can I graduate past this? That's our lesson. And then finally, given all of that, our anchor for the week, 9 of Pentacles. That feels so nourishing and restorative and juicy considering the big energies that are also in this spread. The 9 of Pentacles, the nines I read as like a resting point, finding empowerment and rest and nourishment and juiciness even before we've reached a graduation or end or some sort of um, milestone, right? Like, how can we enjoy the process even before we've reached the end of it? This card encourages us to just kind of step back and allow ourselves to be proud of how far we've come and where we are. Again, even if we haven't reached where we want to go. And I think that I think this is so important, especially entering into Capricorn season, which can be very goal oriented, can be very kind of um, I'll talk a lot more about this, but it's easy to kind of mix very capitalist, productivity focused ideas with Capricorn energy. So I love that this card is here encouraging you to be where you are, find pride and enjoyment where you are, even if you don't feel like you've earned that, even if that feels really hard to be in and get to, you're invited to anchor in with it. So, mama, pretend. You got to pretend, you know? Can you find can you find an ability to lean into pleasure, pride, enjoyment for where you are in your process? Can you find pockets of time where that does feel allowed and that does feel true? Can you cultivate those pockets of time for yourself? This card asks, like, what is standing in the way of you truly enjoying and resting into how beautiful this life is right now? What is getting in your way of that right now? And what can you do about it right now so that you can find a little more pride, pleasure, rest, enjoyment, gratitude, 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 where you are right now? That's our anchor. So, whatever comes up this week, you're invited to anchor into that idea. Like, how can I find peace and pleasure and enjoyment right now? Which might feel like a big, big yikes at times. um, it can feel really far away at times, right? But like the more we can practice it, the more we cultivate it, the more access we have to it, and the closer and closer it feels to us wherever we are. So, I hope that feels useful for you as you move through the week. Well, it'll be interesting to see how some of that comes up for us. Please feel free to let me know. And on that note, let's go ahead and move into the expansive astrology for the week. Let's go ahead and formally welcome Capricorn season. So, to start, I'm going to share with you what the characteristics of Capricorn energy are, what the invitations are, what the themes are, and what some of the challenges are for the season. I also want to discuss the tarot energies associated with Capricorn. And we'll talk about how to keep ourselves empowered with Capricorn energy so that we can make the most of what the season can bring. Capricorn is the 10th sign of the zodiac, and it is a cardinal earth sign ruled by Saturn. It is in the 10th house of career, and its phrase is I use. Capricorn is represented by the goat and has tarot correspondences of the Devil card and the World card. So let's break that down. Along with Taurus and Virgo, Capricorn is an earth sign. Earth energy is grounding, practical, hardworking. It represents matter itself, all things earthly, our physical bodies, our material possessions, our finances, our routine, our work, all of it. Earth signs are interested in creating comfort from those resources. And something to keep in mind is that just like with our planet Earth, overconsumption of resources can be devastating. We learn through these signs in different and deeper ways how to tend to these things carefully and utilize our resources wisely. A cardinal sign, like Aries, Cancer, and Libra, these are the signs that are initiating and leading. The word cardinal comes from the Latin word for hinge. These are the ones that get the show on the road. They affect change. It can be forceful and overwhelming, and they get things shaken and moving. Initiating and leading, these are the signs that provide the first spark of an idea. And they can help to pivot our lives in a very major way. Now, this cardinal earth sign is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is the planet of like sacred responsibility, karmic responsibility. Saturn concerns structure and how we control. It represents limitations and obstacles and responsibility. Saturn structures our lives and provides over career and longevity. It can help us identify where problems and restrictions exist in our lives and helps to remind us of the impermanence of this existence. Not so comfy of a thought, and necessary nevertheless. Saturn is a planet of firm foundations. It assists us in identifying ways we can experience more structure and sustainability. This energy can feel harsh and unforgiving, and it's an energy that's honest. It doesn't shy away from the harsh realities that exist. It supports us in progressing through our lives, providing foundational support and helping us to master problems in sustainable ways. Joanna Woolfolk says, quote, "In its symbolic form, Saturn is our destiny. It rules fate, the things we cannot escape, and the payment we must make for what we receive." Unquote. Represented by the goat, which somewhere along the line took on the meaning of greatest of all time. The goat is sure-footed and able to climb mountains unlike any other. It butts its way right through the obstacles that it encounters to get to the top. It takes advantage of every foothold it finds. The goat reminds us that we may not be able to move mountains, but at least we can scale the heights. Now, residing over the 10th house of career, Capricorn is concerned with things like reputation and social status. This is the house that is all about our social standing and the pieces of us that are public. Roy Gillette says the 10th house represents the face we present to the outside world and the status to which we aspire. This feels very appropriate given that New Year's is right around the corner for the Gregorian calendar. And it's a common practice to do a big reevaluating of who we are and how we're showing up, and creating vision boards and resolutions and goals for how to better align with how we want to show up. It's very Capricorn. This house helps teach us how to create and sustain success. It explores the image we wish others to see of us, the standards we uphold for our lives. This season, you're invited to ask yourself, how do you want to be perceived? And why? Why is that important to you? What about that is important to you? And how do you go about meeting those standards and staying in integrity with those standards? This house is the outward expression of your natural talents. It's how you handle responsibility and where your efforts take you. The phrase for Capricorn is I use. And we'll talk a bit about the Queen of Pentacles later, which also represents Capricorn energy. But we get to really evaluate and explore and refine and empower the ways that we are utilizing our resources, our relationship with our resources. I use. See, it's a big phrase, it's a big prompt, but just like keeping it that broad, what do you use? And what is your relationship to it? How do you use it? I'm reminded again of that idea that how we do one thing is how we do everything. How do you use your resources? What do you use? What is your relationship with those? Even the most simple things. And for some reason, I keep thinking of a toothbrush, which I have an electric toothbrush that's been dead for ages now. And that might seem, it is. It's very trivial. It's very small. It's not a huge deal, right? Um, and if I'm kind of just evaluating, like, if how I do one thing is how I do everything, and if I'm kind of looking at how I use everything, no big deal, could I refine even the way I use my toothbrush, even the way I engage with my toothbrush? Can I respect it and give it new power and use it the way it's meant to be used and to its fullest ability? Can I care enough about that? And there, again, that is really trivial. And the fact that I haven't changed the batteries on it doesn't mean I don't care. It doesn't mean I don't care about anything, right? Um, Taking it easy with that idea of how you do one thing is how you do everything. My like relationship with the toothbrush is not necessarily representative of my relationship with everything, right? But it's kind of like a radical, interesting thing to consider and just to look at. Can I refine my relationship with even my toothbrush? Or what if it does represent something much bigger than just a toothbrush? What if it does represent like my self-care in general, my tending to what is important, right? Like, um, hmm, yikes. But just some interesting pondering, uh, inspired by Capricorn energy. And something we talked about at this last week's moon meetup, where we discussed Capricorn energy and how we want to utilize it, how we want to bring it in, what it means to each of us. Uh, once again, I so appreciated the conversation that we had at the moon meetup, because it really pointed out to me the way that some of these things, and maybe this will be more clear when I list the empowered and disempowered expressions of Capricorn energy. But a lot of these ideas and a lot of these themes, a lot of these adjectives, uh, it's really easy to look at them as strictly capitalist, very like productivity focused, the house of career, right? Like and the things that we use, our earthly resources, and Earth in the tarot is represented by pentacles, which a lot of people read as money. So it became very clear to me at the moon meetup on Sunday that I look at these things beyond productivity and our work and our bank accounts, and the batteries that need to be changed in the house. Looking at these things beyond productivity and quote unquote success, right? Kind of expanding, broadening, and or redefining what success truly means, and making sure that we don't get caught up in it can be maybe perhaps an easy trap to look at Capricorn energy and be like, okay, so how am I going to work? Let's bust out the to-do lists and the Excel spreadsheets. And that can be a gift, that can be very important, that can be a useful use. a useful use of Capricorn season and this energy. And I want to name that so that you and I together can begin to and continue to expand and broaden the understanding of what Capricorn is, which Capricorn existed and beyond and before a 40-hour work week and to-do lists and Excel spreadsheets and accounting and taxes and those sorts of things, right? How do these energies, themes, gifts, invitations, and medicines, how do they apply beyond how we make money and what you are doing? How can you apply these things, maybe perhaps less to what you're doing and apply them more to how you're being? So, that being said, here's my list of some of the empowered expressions of Capricorn energy. Capricorn can be determined, controlled, careful, practical, and loyal. It can be responsible and prudent, patient, strategic, disciplined, and steady. Capricorn can be ambitious, initiative, detail-oriented, committed, effective, resourceful. And in its disempowered expression, Capricorn can be controlling, inflexible, overcautious, and reserved. Can be stern and stoic and untrusting, cold, sober, gloomy, intolerant, black and white, close-minded, critical. Can be materialistic, stubborn, indifferent, unwilling to ask for help, insecure, aloof, rigid, pessimistic, and unsympathetic. So my invitation is for you to keep these words in mind, keep these ways of being, these feelings, these adjectives. Keep these things in mind. Notice if you're showing up in a disempowered expression of Capricorn energy. Notice it. Be like, ooh, I'm being really controlling right now. Is there a way that I can flip from a disempowered, controlling place into a more empowered, determined, detail-oriented place? Notice when you're in a disempowered expression and empower yourself to step into a more aligned expression. A big challenge that can come up in and for Capricorn energy is again in like how we use our resources, how we create and sustain success for ourselves, expanding the idea of success beyond like what is in your bank account and like what you dress yourself with and what your job status is and those sorts of things. Um, a big challenge for Capricorn is how we parent ourselves. And I'm going to quote Joanna Woolfolk again because she says this perfectly. She says, specifically about Saturn, she says, quote, "In certain ways, Saturn is an austere and strict parent. You do not need to be your own parent who disciplines and keeps you towing the line. You yourself must allow the spontaneous part of you to play and run." Unquote. This brings up a huge conversation around how you parent yourself, around what discipline can and should look and feel like, how you get yourself to do things. For most of us, it doesn't look very kind and gentle and pretty and accepting and understanding. For most of us, it sounds like, God, Why am I need to get my ass up. God, I always stay up too late. Such an idiot. Oh, fuck, I slept in again. I forgot that thing. I'm such an idiot. If you eat that donut, you're gonna have to pay for it later. You always procrastinate everything. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Nobody's gonna like you if you do that or dress like that or if you don't do that. For many of us, our inner parenting is pretty fucked up. Like, just to put it plainly. And I don't know about you, but I don't operate my best if I'm being spoken to that way by myself or another person. I operate my best when I feel understood, accepted, when I feel like I have respect and space and encouragement, when I feel like I have like there's faith in me and what I can do, when there's acknowledgement of my strengths. Like for me, being a super strict, harsh parent on myself, that's not going to get my batteries changed in my toothbrush either. Right? If I called myself a lazy moron for it, like how simple is it? How long has it been and how simple is it? Right? I could see that easily being my narrative, right? Why can't you just do it? What is wrong with you? This must indicate some obvious deficit in your character. Like, no, it doesn't. And talking to myself that way or believing about myself that way or looking at the situation in that way certainly is not going to help me. It's not going to get batteries in the toothbrush any faster. In fact, it probably prolongs the whole ordeal. So that's just that's one of the challenges, one of the things to look at for Capricorn energy, and like for everybody, right? Joanna is kind of talking to Capricorns in specific here. Um, and I know we all can relate to having an inner parent and um, trying to figure out how to parent ourselves best or literally parent actual children outside of ourselves, right? Let alone that. But this is one of the things that all of us get to look at, get to, need to, will eventually be forced to. How do you use your resources? How do you get things done? Can you allow the spontaneous part of you to play and run? And remembering that only you can allow that. Only you can allow that. So, over Capricorn season, we are examining how we put our dreams into action, how we pursue our destiny, what motivates us, how to know which mountains to climb, which goals to set, which goals to pursue, how to keep our eyes set, our eyes on the prize, right? And how are you going to get there? How are you going to get to the top of the mountain? How do you want to be perceived? And why is that important? How do you go about meeting those standards? How can you refine all of this and exist in all of this and feel whole and successful and worthy as you are? Another part of the challenge that can come with Capricorn energy is learning how to be in those gifts and with those themes, learning how to um, sustainably and practically and effectively like reach our goals and scale the mountain while also loosening up a little. Like learning how to do those things and also like not take it so seriously. I just think that can be a challenge for Capricorn, is like not taking everything super seriously. There can be like a fear of appearing weak, showing quote unquote weakness. It can be a characteristic of Capricorn to be too self-reliant and like unwilling to um, need or welcome or accept outside help. Like, are you a bit of a control freak? And is that perhaps something that can be just addressed a little bit this season, or just something to notice? Like, remembering that, like, being too self-reliant can be a huge hindrance. Having too much control, being too much of a control freak, actually blocks innovation and opportunity, right? So we want to be effective, we want to be careful, we want to be detail oriented in those ways that can be helpful, but that's the thing is like um keep it helpful, you know what I mean? There comes a point where those things are not helpful anymore. So how do you handle it when things are out of your control? How do you handle it when um plans change or obstacles show up in your path? Can you embody and be in a true sense of control, right? Like, it's not true control if you lose your shit at the the sight of an obstacle or in the face of like changing plans, right? Which brings up the idea that I contemplate often, the idea that like, well, how much is like control is an illusion anyway, right? So we can use this Capricorn medicine and the gifts of being detail oriented, being very careful, being on top of things, kind of like what some may consider control. Can we exercise all of that while also ultimately acknowledging like that it's all an illusion? That very little is actually within our control. And then finally, I'm just going to re-emphasize it before I move on. Uh that idea that like yes, it is your job to parent yourself, if that resonates, or like it's your job to stay on top of shit, right? Like you are your own responsibility. It is your job, your responsibility to parent yourself, to take care of your shit, to run your life effectively, and to keep yourself healthy. And how do you want to go about doing that? Can you have an inner parent that isn't so damn harsh? Something about Capricorn and the goat is that maybe it doesn't always know when to stop, when to stop trying to climb different mountains, how to feel um, complete and whole with the mountains that have been scaled or how far they have been scaled, right? So I want to chat a bit about the tarot because the devil card helps us learn how to tame the brain, how to follow the soul. So, we're going to talk about the devil and the world and the suit of pentacles, looking at Capricorn energy through the lens of the tarot. The devil card is one of those ones that tends to be kind of feared. You know, it's an intense image. It's the devil, the representative of like evil, right? And yes, the way Soul Tarot teaches the devil, the way I read it, it is often a signal that there is some sort of contraction happening. It's always a clue to me that there's a lot happening in the brain. This energy, this card asks us to check in with the brain, check in with the story that the brain is telling, um, or the story that it's sticking to, and remembering you are not your brain. The Devil card is about those times that the brain is getting scared because we're on the verge of expansion. Remembering that at the site of expansion, the brain's natural tendency is to contract, freeze, keep us small, keep us the same. And when we're working with the Devil card, it's a liberation from those things that the brain invites us into: shame, anxiety, limiting beliefs, old stories. Working with this energy is about freeing ourselves so that we may embrace ourselves in our fullness, embrace ourselves like as in the truth of what we are. It reminds us not to just indiscriminately take in what the mind says. And this is important, and it's related to Capricorn because Capricorn is so willing and ready to just go, 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 climb, 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 the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And it can take a lot of work for Capricorn to do that sort of soul check-in that Sagittarius is the expert at. Checking that like soul check-in of like, should I climb this mountain? Is this aligned? Is it aligned? Is it still aligned? Is this even something I want to engage with? Like, which mountains am I climbing and why? And part of this work is like it's impossible to do this work without engaging in a relationship with the brain. Having almost a dialogue with the brain or with yourself, having an awareness with yourself and an ability to honor what is coming up for us, honoring the contraction, honoring the limiting beliefs, honoring the fact that every function of the brain, as limiting or frustrating or unbearable as it can feel, that ultimately its whole function is to keep us alive. Its whole function, right? That's everything. Like it has evolved and it does these incredible, mysterious, amazing things for us. And its whole function is to keep us alive. So naturally, it will resist any attempt at us like getting it out of that driver's seat. The brain knows how to control us. The brain knows how to keep itself in that driver's seat by using shame, fear, guilt, imposter syndrome, self-sabotage, harsh critical narratives, all those things. It knows exactly what to do to keep us away from liberation, to keep us away from massive expansion, to keep us away from anything that might possibly be risky. And when I'm saying all this, it's also not fully logical, right? Like, um, just to say that, like, we still engage with and the brain still invites us into, like, risky behaviors, right? And when I say that its whole function is to keep us alive and, like, safe, uh, maybe the more accurate thing to say is, its whole function is to keep it feeling safe. And, like, if it feels safe to be addicted to alcohol and in, um, a relationship that is ultimately harmful and toxic and to keep you harming yourself and your body in some ways, and if it feels comfortable, maybe I should say comfortable. The brain's job is to keep us comfortable, and it is damn good at keeping us comfortable, and, like, ultimately, it has all of these functions, and it has evolved to keep us alive and thus safe, but that doesn't mean that, like, we don't engage in stupid things that are totally unsafe. And this is why it's so important to have an engaged, knowing relationship with the brain, to not just indiscriminately be letting the brain control the driver's seat or control the direction of the car at all times, right? Because it will have us do things that are ultimately contributing to our discomfort or contributing to our like unsafety, our dis-ease, our lack of evolution, connection, intuition, trust, and growth. The work is like learning to have a brain that is on board with those things, that is supporting us in those things. When we're engaging in brain work in this way, brain versus soul work, when we're engaging in um, working with the devil card, we are no longer allowing ourselves to engage with those things that keep us from liberation of fear. The brain does an excellent job of keeping us in fear and keeping us away from that which would liberate us from that fear. We are no longer allowing ourselves to engage with narratives and beliefs that are keeping us from liberating ourselves from our own limiting beliefs and fears. And also there's kind of this other layer to it too of like um honoring our brain and seeing it for what it is and not shaming ourselves for having a brain, not shaming ourselves for being pulled into confusing behaviors that are, yeah, maybe perpetuating a false sense of security and comfort, but are ultimately contributing to our demise or our unhealth, our dis-ease, our disconnection, all those things I said. It's also brain work. It's also devil work to see it for what it is and not shame ourselves for it. To know, like, I have a brain, and sometimes that means I think incorrect things. And I behave in ineffective, maybe sometimes even perhaps harmful, right? Like misaligned, disempowered, um, fear-based ways. I'm not saying that we don't hold ourselves accountable for that. It's not like, oh, well, my brain told me to act like shit. So it was my brain. It wasn't my soul. Like, yikes. I hope nobody ever hears anything I say and thinks that that's like what I'm implying. Not at all. But it's about like removing the shame from it because that's just the brain perpetuating itself, right? Like that the false belief that I should be better, I shouldn't be thinking this way, I shouldn't have done that. And like maybe it's so tricky cuz like maybe yeah, like we make mistakes and it can be true. Like, oh no, I should not have done that. Like that can be true. But don't let your brain use that to reinforce the belief that you are bad or no good or that you should be ashamed of yourself. It just like reinforces its own self. Ugh, yikes. I hope that makes sense. Let's talk about how shame and guilt keep us from expansion. Because so many people believe that we like need those things. We need to feel shame or guilt uh, in order to change or in order to motivate change. And Soul Centered Tarot says that this energy is actually about learning how to recenter into true personal responsibility. Personal responsibility that does not necessarily rely on or include guilt and shame. Do you know that personal responsibility can include or don't have to include guilt and shame and like feeling like total shit? You have to learn like how to acknowledge when something that you've engaged with, whether that be an old pattern or some sort of behavior or some sort of um, self medication or numbing or disconnection, distraction, like whatever it may be, acknowledging that those are invitations from the brain that we get to choose whether or not to engage with those things, acknowledging that what the brain is inviting us to do isn't actually serving, and considering, like, so what do you want to engage with? What do you want to do? And taking personal responsibility from there, liberating ourselves from actions that we know aren't serving us, stalking an ex on social media, picking a fight with our partner, having a glass of wine every night, scrolling social media. It's an opportunity to get really clear on what we don't want to perpetuate and the stories that the brain brings up about how we are somehow wrong or bad, or the stories and beliefs that perpetuate feelings of shame or guilt. Like we can't always control what our brain invites us into, but it is about allowing those things to be present and using our personal power, our personal responsibility, our intentions to choose whether or not to take those invitations, to choose whether or not to entertain and engage with shame-based narratives or shame-based behaviors, fear-based narratives or fear-based behaviors. When we can open a dialogue with the brain and learn how to say, like, I hear you, brain. Like, okay, I hear you loud and clear. Uh, but this is gonna be fine. Like, I've got this. I'm safe. I'm gonna I'm gonna try a new way. I'm gonna try a new way to go about this. Um, and if that doesn't work out, I can always go back to my old ways real quick, real easy. But this time, right now, I am in control. I am in my power. I am not a small child anymore. It- Argo is kidding you. What? Speaking of small child, my kiddo opened the door and ran in the room right when I said that. Uh, because the timing of it, I had to keep the interruption in to let you hear the cuteness. Let me hop back to what I was saying. I have found so much power in reminding my brain and myself I am not a small child anymore. I am safe. I am in control. I provide everything I need. It's okay if somebody's mad at me. It's okay if I disappoint someone. I am in control. I've got this. It's okay. It's safe. It's safe. Engaging with the brain, noticing when you're spiraling, noticing it. And sometimes it can be helpful to verbalize, like verbally say, like, no, no, no. um, it can just be as simple as no, but verbally saying, like, I'm not going to go down that path. It can help to say it out loud, um, to like, um, really get you like out of the brain. And that's not always possible, but, like, at least saying it, acknowledging it to yourself, like, "Ooh, my brain is taking me down a bad path. I'm in a sticky narrative. I'm experiencing, like, some sort of contraction, or I'm feeling disempowered. I'm feeling frozen in fear." Like, noticing where we're operating from, right? And if it's a brain place, we get to choose, like, do I have to take this invitation? Do I have to freeze here and not say anything in order to appear polite? Do I have to suffer through an uncomfortable experience, whatever, interaction, or abusive interaction because it feels polite and safer? Or am I safe? Am I safe to speak, to move, to affect some sort of change. And it's not about it's not about always overriding what the brain is asking us to do. No, no, no. But again, it's about knowing when. It's knowing how to have a relationship with the brain so that it's not just operating the vehicle at all times, right? Going unchecked based on faulty or limiting or fear based, shame based, guilt based, untrue beliefs or narratives. On the Pamela Coleman Smith illustration of the Devil card, we see these captive beings who represent the times that we feel trapped by our circumstances, and the chains that are hanging around their necks are loose. Their hands aren't tied, their feet aren't tied. They can lift their hands and escape from those chains at any time, but they don't feel like they can to a certain degree. As big and bad and scary as the creature is that is holding them there, to a certain degree, these are self-imposed limitations. They can get out of there. They can engage with all of this in a different way. So it invites a conversation, or just like you're invited to explore what those chains might represent for you. What keeps you chained where you are? What kind of beliefs, what kind of untrue limiting beliefs are keeping you where you are? And what would it mean? What would it look like to start to like lift your hands and take an action away from those fears, away from those untrue limiting beliefs? The brain contracts, the brain activates, it brings up all kinds of shit when we're on the verge of leveling up, when we're on the verge of experiencing something in a new way, which doesn't always mean unsafe or danger, right? And speaking of leveling up, the World card is also a major player in Capricorn. And the World card is the final card of the major arcana. This card is about the end of a cycle, the graduation into something new. It's about some sort of rebirth, whether we feel complete or not, whether we know what this means and is or not. Like when the World card comes up, we are ready to complete something and move into something new. It's like clearing something. It's the culmination of leaning into every experience and learning every lesson and considering every invitation, every opportunity. And this rebirth, culmination, this graduation can be really huge. It can be like a graduation or a marriage or a divorce or a promotion or something like that. Or it can be really subtle and simple. In a way, we're again talking about like sacred responsibility. What are we moving away from? What are we ready to be clear of? What have you conquered? What is worth moving toward? And what lessons have you completed? Can you let them be complete? The World card is some sort of graduation. Again, subtle and internal, or massive and external. It represents a graduation. It represents that this current fool's journey has come to some sort of completion. And we're going to talk more about the fool and the fool's journey next season, in Aquarius season. So with the devil, we're taking radical responsibility for our brains and managing what we're invited into. And with the world, we're finding a sense of wholeness and fulfillment, moving from ignorant to enlightened, knowing and accepting exactly where we are. Capricorn is big work. And then to bring it back to the pentacles, Earth, meaning all the things that sustain us here on Earth. Our physical resources, our bodies, our values, practical concerns and material goods, what we do with our hands, what we do with our time. The Suit of Pentacles asks us to say yes to the soul in each and every moment we are alive on this planet. They ask us to do something with what we're given, with the resources that we have. What is your soul's destiny, your soul's calling, and how can you bring it down and out and through and into the world using who you are, how you are, and what you have? It's about devotion to our work, to growing, to bringing something to our world. How do you grow something out of what you've been given? The idea that our wounding informs our purpose. Like, how do you use what you are and what you have to build and grow something sustaining and nourishing? In the Suit of Pentacles, we've started with just one little seed inspired by God or Source. And by the end, we have an entire orchard serving a whole community. We've taken the time, we've done the work, the research, the nurturing, the devotion, the tending. And by the end, we can feed anyone and everyone that we're meant to. And that doesn't just mean in terms of earthly money in our bank accounts. Although I love to buy into the belief that doing that work and tending to our soul work is divinely compensated, that we will be tended and cared for and protected, provided for when we are in alignment with that and when we are serving like in that sort of way. And like it's about more than our work. It's about our soul work. It's about what we're doing to make this world a better place. And that might not have anything to do with how you make money. This orchard that can provide for anyone and everyone might not have anything to do with money. It's much more than that. And it's much less than that. And that's not exactly what I mean. It's much more subtle than that. Like, it's how we treat the barista. It's how we treat our earth. It's how we engage with our resources, what we are devoted to. And the Queen of Pentacles is so in alignment and is so helpful and useful and healthy with her resources and her garden that she has a whole kingdom, right? And that she's an imperative step to getting to the king. So, like with that earth energy, we're looking at approaching life from a soul-centered perspective, approaching our resources and the earth, our bodies, our time, our hands, and what we're doing with our hands from a soul-centered perspective. We get to like adjust or know, like acknowledge where we need to adjust, where we've been spending our time and our energy and our resources. So that's what I have for you for Capricorn as an introduction to Capricorn. It's a lot. It's a lot as we move like closer and closer to the end of the year. Next week, I have a special episode for you, which I'm going to tell you about in a moment. But after that, relating to Capricorn, we will be speaking about really getting practical and having that purposeful pursuit toward our goals and that purposeful effective pursuit toward our destiny. And then the week after that, we will be talking about that idea of like um, getting practical and being really purposeful and detail oriented while also loosening up a little bit. But before I share my exciting news with you about next week's episode, let me give you a brief astrological forecast for the week to come. The times here are listed in Eastern Daylight Time, and this is all printed in the show notes if you want to take a little look-see. First, I'm going to name where the planets are and any major transits that are happening there. We have the sun moving into Capricorn on the 21st in the evening at 4:48 p.m. And it is joining Mercury, Venus, and Pluto, which are all also in Capricorn. Mercury will be starting its retrograde period next Thursday, the 29th, and it will be retrograde until January 18th. This is your final reminder that retrograde revival guide is a thing and that I would so love to have you. The registration for retrograde revival guide closes on Sunday because I don't want you to miss too much. And that gives you enough time to review the first week and really hop in to the second week of retrograde revival guide right before retrograde actually begins on Thursday. Retrograde Revival Guide is my 5-week guided course all about staying in your power during Mercury retrograde. And I tackle that topic in a lot of different ways. First, we use Mercury retrograde as an opportunity to cleanse ourselves of one thing and bring something positive, bring another positive thing in. So, throughout the time that Mercury is retrograde, you can experiment with quitting coffee or taking a break from social media or taking a break from alcohol while also implementing a positive, healthy habit like doing yoga every day or engaging with a mindfulness practice or a gratitude practice or starting a savings account, something like that. And then as Mercury retrograde unfolds, I help you engage with your power and stay in your power with weekly crash courses on the pillars of personal power. We're talking awareness and mindfulness, healthy communication and conflict management, a healthy, knowing, trusting relationship with your emotions and what comes up for you, stopping self sabotage and staying in alignment, and filling your life with healthy things that fill you up and serve you, and getting rid of anything that is not in alignment. It's truly my favorite thing I've ever created. Members get a 10% discount, and there is a payment plan available. If this is something you're interested in joining, do not delay. Registration closes on Sunday, and I only have 3 spots left. If you have any questions, never hesitate to hop into my DMs. Let's chat about it. Now, Mars is retrograde in Gemini. It won't be direct until January. Jupiter is in Aries starting Tuesday the 20th. Saturn is in Aquarius. Uranus is retrograde in Taurus, and Neptune is in Pisces. Now I'm going to tell you what's going on with the moon this week. It's recommended that these periods where the moon is void, of course, we kind of take a break from externally goal-oriented activities and take it easy and focus more on like restoration, self-care, taking it easy. I share all of this with you not so that you overly structure your life around these things, but more so that you stay open to seeing how these things may play out for you. And also, I'll take any excuse I can get to encourage you to take it easy for some pockets of time. Tuesday the 20th The moon is void, of course, from 9:45 p.m. until it enters Sagittarius early Wednesday at 2:21 a.m. The moon is void, of course, again on Thursday, the 22nd, from 3:16 in the afternoon until it enters Capricorn early Friday morning at 2:49 a.m. So keep in mind that Thursday afternoon and evening, the moon will be void, of course, that whole time. And then on Friday, the 23rd, we have a new moon in Capricorn at 5:17 a.m. If you want to learn more about how to work with the new moon in Capricorn and the moon phases in general, consider coming to a moon meetup. They are so fun. You can join us in person in Old Town Fort Collins or from your sweet living room via Zoom. Sunday, the 24th, the moon is void, of course, from 10:11 p.m. until it enters Aquarius early Sunday morning at 2:14 a.m. And then Monday, the 26th, the moon is void, of course, from 1:19 p.m. all day until it enters Pisces early Tuesday morning, 2:42 a.m. So that might be another important one to note, is that Monday, the 26th, the moon will be void, of course, pretty much all day. Now for my exciting news. Next week, I have a very, very, very special episode for you. I get to share with you my interview with tarot reader and author Jenna Matlin. Jenna is the author of several tarot books. The most recent just came out last month. It's called Will You Give Me a Reading? And I am not exaggerating when I say it's my favorite tarot book I've ever read. It's the number one tarot book I would recommend to a newbie. So I feel so honored and completely jazzed that I was able to sit down with Jenna and have a lovely conversation with her about all sorts of things. We start off the interview. We had the honor of her doing our collective tarot reading for the week. So we start with that. And then I had all sorts of things to ask her about her unique teaching style, her view of the tarot, her very unique book, and just endless admiration and questions for such an experienced professional tarot reader. So I hope you will tune in for that, my Jenna Matlin interview. And one final thing to note is that our next moon meetup actually happens on Sunday, January 1st. It will be in preparation for the full moon in Cancer. So we will be exploring that polarity between Capricorn and Cancer. Capricorn, I use, and Cancer, I feel. It's a beautiful full moon to start off 2023 with, and to celebrate the occasion and the timing of the occasion, I'm going to be hosting a little vision board party. So invite your friends, invite your loved ones. I would love to have a little party on the 1st with you downtown, Peaceful Birth Company. You can find more information on my website. If you've never been to a moon meetup and you're wondering what it's all about, this might be a good first one to try. And you'll get to walk away with a really special, really fun, unique vision board. I have some ideas. Okay, with that, thank you so much for being here. I really hope that this week's episode feels helpful for you as we start moving into Capricorn season and feeling out this next cycle. I love you so much for being here. Thank you for being here. I will see you next time. And until then, take care. Bye. Now, before you go, let me keep your ear for just a moment. This week's episode is brought to you by www.theselfcarewitch.com, my bread and butter, where you can find more information on my current courses, offerings, and other fun ways to connect with myself and yourself. If you enjoyed this episode and you dig what I'm doing here, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review. It helps so much. And if you'd like to connect with me, head to theselfcarewitch.com. I'd truly love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.